Let me just start by saying that I am not the hidden multicam guy. That said, today I want to share with you the process behind another hidden multi-camera shoot, the pre-production, the shoot itself, and the problems that we encountered along the way. Hi people of the World Wide Web, my name's Scott, a director and cinematographer based in London, England. And before we get into this video for Concha Wines filmed on one pretty much solidly sunny day down in Southampton, I just wanted to ask if you would be so kind as to give me a thumbs up on the in the player below. It really helps. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, now let's talk about my very real career-based concern of being typecast. It's not just the actors that suffer this, it's directors and cinematographers too. Getting typecast in the industry has always been a real concern of mine. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because in order to progress really far, the recurring advice has always been it's good to focus in one area. But then if you just focus in one area, it's really hard to get work in others. And I get bored easily. I like doing all different sorts of jobs. It keeps life interesting. 2021 has now seen me direct, as well as camera operate, on 3 different hidden multi-camera shoots.
No way, really?
I enjoyed all 3 shoots, and I'm grateful for the work, but then this concern starts to niggle at me. Am I becoming the hidden multi-cam guy? Because I don't want to be. It's not the kind of work I'm proud of, or would even want to include in any of my portfolio, through fear of cementing myself further as the hidden multicam guy. I like making work that can be well planned, well thought out, and there's a large element of these types of jobs that is just up to chance, relying on the unknown and the uncontrollable. I also like trying really hard to create work that's visually striking, and that's been nigh on impossible to achieve in the locations and scenarios these shoots have presented me with. I am not the hidden multicam guy, okay? But here's a look at the second out of 3 hidden multicam shoots that I've directed this year. The job was essentially an event video, but with a twist, as part of a campaign to promote the company's lesser-known wine range. Their marketing agency here in the UK had this fancy-looking table built especially. People want a place at the table, they got free food, accompanied by the appropriate pairing of wine, and then when they felt like they needed cooling off, they'd press the button and receive a refreshing misting, the coolest table in town. Passers-by would also receive a spraying down, and hilarious reactions would ensue. We were to capture the event from a somewhat hidden distance, hopefully grab some good one-liners, and from this create a 60-second film of the day for their channels and a 20-second cut down for their socials, in an effort to drive more awareness around the campaign. I don't have all the detailed figures for this, as I wasn't involved in producing, but I do know that the total budget was 10 grand sterling. Okay Google, what's £10,000 in dollars?
I understood. How much is $10,000? Is that right?
No. Okay Google, how much is £10,000 in dollars?
£10,000 is approximately 11,819 euros and 45 cents.
That's not what I asked, is it? I'll put it on the screen. Typically out of this, the production company would have taken 20% off of that right off the top to cover their overheads and for their profits. Then the rest paid for the producer's time, me, an additional camera operator, kit hire, travel, hotels, food, and then the various edits afterwards. In the lead up to the shoot, as the director, I had an initial briefing from the production company, followed by a more thorough Zoom meeting with the agency on the line, then followed by a second in-person meeting, the first of any that I've had since March of 2020, with production, agency, and the clients. Now, I didn't have to write a treatment for this, but I did present a few stylistic suggestions and things we might want to try in order to elevate it from the average shoot of this sort. Armed with the lessons learned from my previous hidden multicam shoot, I am not the hidden multicam guy. With Huel earlier in the year, after a quick Google Maps pre-scout of what might be available to us, I headed down a week or so before the shoot with my producer Natalie to do a recce of the less than inspiring space the event was taking place in. It was just a distinctly average looking shopping centre, but fortunately with some interesting looking ruins just over the way. So my thoughts were to do everything possible to utilise not shooting towards the shopping centre, and getting as much face time with the sun as possible, as we wanted these films to feel warm, bright and summery. Unfortunately, when it came to the installation process, there were some restrictions on where the table could go, partly due to health and safety and partly due to power access. On the recce, I thought we got them to place it in the best spot possible to utilise everything. Light, passerby interaction, best possible camera positioning. But then, the night before the shoot, none of the things the events team at the shopping centre had said would be sorted had been done, and the installers had been given very different instructions about the where of the installation, and were adamant that they should stick to what they'd been told. So unfortunately that wrote off the passerby interaction straight away, which was a shame because it could have been an entertaining element of the film, but it was what it was. The producer and myself had travelled down the night before in order to capture the build, as at the time we discussed using this as part of the narrative. However, it ended up being pretty straightforward to assemble and visually dull. as well as the late arrival of the installation crew, meaning the available lighting conditions for shooting had gone from ideal to grim. On the day of the shoot, we weren't expecting our first talent until midday, so it began at a very nice, leisurely pace. Nathan, our second camera operator, joined us along with the agency creative director and client at our base unit overlooking the table, which was also to act as one of our camera positions. We didn't have a soundie on this one, as production were keen to keep crew numbers low in order to not eat into their profit. So all I did was take my wireless Sennheiser EW100 G3 series lav, taped the transmitter under the table, and fed the mic as discreetly as possible to under a branded drinks mat. Remotely, by my camera station, the receiver was plugged into my Zoom sound recorder, so I was able to trigger recording and then check on the battery life of the pack in between participants. Even though everyone taking part was well aware they were going to be filmed and had already signed releases, what we were going to capture was a relative unknown. In an ideal world, I was hopeful for some positive one-liners about the wine, and maybe some family-friendly banter. We grabbed a few more constructed shots at the beginning of their session, inserts of wine pouring, food tasting, and a compulsory cheers. After that, we'd leave them be and return to our camera post at a distance. Shooting on both a Red Gemini and Komodo, so the cameras would match up nicely in post. There's also the classically cheap feeling GoPro shots in there, but what are you gonna do? We used the relatively straightforward 70 to 200 Canon zoom lenses with a doubler for a couple of shots and glimmerglass filters on the front of the lens to add an air of warmth and romance to the image. At least that was the idea. Again, taking knowledge from the hidden camera shoot earlier in the year, I'd sorted walkie-talkies for Nathan and I to communicate on, as well as this time making sure to get the wireless sorted properly, purely from a directing point of view so I could see Nathan's frame whilst shooting my own and feedback when necessary. A lot of the most entertaining material, at least from the point of view of my probably slightly skewed by reality TV mind, was unusable. This group of ladies that were already several Aperol spritz deep before they arrived for their wine tasting had me giggling behind the camera, but was largely inappropriate and unusable.
Let's talk about how I'm a doctor.
Are you a doctor?
Yeah.
You'd make a good doctor.
No, I am a doctor.
Oh, in being a
I've got such a
I've got
massive
PhD in
surgery.
being a
The client was keen for authenticity, so for the chat about the wine, we just had to wait. But it would inevitably come, and people seemed to like it, so at least that was on our side. Now, the weather was always going to be the biggest challenge. But fortunately, we didn't have any rain. And come 7 o'clock, we were packing up on the balcony, backing up footage, and sipping on some leftover Pinot. The edit was, again, a bit like the previous Fuel job, a bit of a cluster of rushes. As per too frequently with my experience, lots of issues with time codes matching and sound and picture aligning. Where things were out, pluralize was out of the question for most of the rest of the audio sync. So for a lot of it, I honestly had to do it by eye. Read some lips, listen to some audio. But as the sound bites were essentially what I was looking for, I could edit the sound first and then link everything up afterwards once I knew specifically what I was trying to find. Snappy and exciting was what I was going for in the edit, including those deliberate in-camera zooms and movement to help it feel more authentic reality. Some added slated copy requests from the creative, 6 versions of revisions later, and on lucky number 7, we were done. Let me know in the comments if you found that at all helpful, interesting, or insightful. This was a very similar shoot to one I've done previously. I didn't want to repeat myself too much, but at the same time I was keen to share what I'd learned and done differently as a result after that first shoot earlier this year. I actually just directed another hidden multicam shoot for McDonald's last month, but we'll give it some good thought to see if there's a different angle to teach from my takings on this one, as I'm keen for each new post to bring some genuine value to anyone that's watching. Anyways, if you didn't at the start, give this video a big juicy like below if you enjoyed it, or perhaps even if you didn't. And make sure to subscribe for more semi-helpful tips and interesting insider industry knowledge.